Rebel Devs Podcast, a show that challenges conventional thinking in the tech industry. Each episode features conversations with solutionists who have taken unconventional approaches to problem solving, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in their respective fields. Join the devolution.
Hey everybody, this is Tom with Rebel Devs, and I'm here today with Anthony Cusimano from ObjectFirst. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Tom. And yourself?
I'm killing it. I'm living the life, living the dream, all that good stuff. But we're here today to talk to you a little bit about ObjectFirst. So some of our listeners, you're new to the area, but yet you've been around for several years. So I'm going to call you new, as weird as that is. And, all right, let's jump in, man. What are we talking about here when we talk about ObjectFirst?
I think it's pretty fair to call us new because technically we've only been selling our product since February 14th of this year. It's called Oobi. It stands for out of the box immutability, but I am getting a little bit ahead of my skis here. ObjectFirst was a company that was founded by Ratmir Timoshev and Andrei Baranov, who founded Veeam 10 plus years ago. They decided, hey, right now there's not a single solution on the market that's purpose-built storage for Veeam. When they founded this thing 3+ years ago, they knew how bad ransomware was. I don't know if they had an idea of how bad it would get, but it certainly seems that they had the right mindset for the time. So they put this company together. They started developing this sort of proprietary object storage solution that had a focus on immutability and really a focus on solving the Veeam customers' storage challenges. How do they get the best storage for the best data management platform? And, 3 years later, they hire a goofball like me to come work for them and to get people excited about the technology, which I super am, and I can't wait to talk more with you about. But that's the long and the short of it. ObjectFirst, it's just their latest vision for how we are making backup better for the world.
It's pretty cool because at one of the VeeamON conferences, probably 2018, I think, it was in Miami. I know this year we were in Miami, but I remember back when Ratmir was still with Veeam, I remember one of the struggles I had as a cloud provider was figuring out this backup to tape scenario. And are we going to air gap and how are we going to manage this all? And Ratmir was very much like, hey, you need to talk to myself and Spiteri and some of these other guys because we're all about this whole object storage. And we were like, do tell us, what is this? And they're like, imagine having an Amazon cloud that's not Amazon. And you're like, wait, what? I'm a cloud provider. I'm getting lost. But as we started rolling up our sleeves, fell in love with Object Store. And I know a big change with V12 now is we can do direct backup copy jobs and different backups to object storage. So this is an amazing convergence. We've talked to Rick Vanover of Veeam in previous episode. We've talked about ultra resilient storage, and the timing is so great to introduce you as kind of our first vendor that really has, while you're new, I think you're really one of the first to markets here, if I had to guess, in there. So let's roll up our sleeves and Anthony, dive in. What do I want to know about this Oobi?
Yeah, so I think it is fair to say we're first to market because I can't think of a single vendor outside of the companies that make cases for iPhones that is just solely dedicated to one product. And that's what makes us unique. At the end of the day, ObjectFirst only works with Veeam. So like I kind of teased earlier, our product is called Oobi. It stands for out of the box immutability. And I say we had the double O in there because every successful startup since Yahoo and Facebook, Google, Amazon, they've all got 2 O's in it. So, we got to follow that trend. And I think so far it's working for us. But the idea of the box is if we focus in on one vendor, which is Veeam, which we know, people love Veeam. You were at VeeamON in Miami 2018, you're there this year. There's just hype. I worked at a different backup vendor before ObjectFirst. And let me tell you, the customer events were the opposite of hype. VeeamON is hype defined. People are so excited to be there. And they're so excited to learn about new tech and get all the latest scoop on things. It was kind of mind blowing for me because I'd never experienced a customer love of a company in that way. So I get why Ratmir and Andrei really wanted to kind of focus in on one product again and build this thing. So bare bones, Oobi is a backup storage appliance. It does have proprietary object storage code that we've written on our own that is basically presenting over S3 to Veeam. We are taking advantage of the V12 API that came out this year, happened to launch the same day we did, lucky coincidence there. But we read from that V12 API. It comes across the wire over S3, even though it's local. It's still using that S3 protocol because it is secure. Amazon invented that. And when they did, they basically changed the game in how information was transferred over a local or a remote network. So we're taking advantage of the S3, the V12 API, comes and lands on our box. Now, our box is nothing special. And that sounds like an insult to us. But truly, it's because the software and the operating system that we've customized and tweaked and made just right for the Veeam use case is doing all of the work. The box is 128 terabytes in a single node, can scale up to 4 nodes in size. Everything's automatic. Everything load balances on its own. But the read speeds are actually significant. So for an on-prem box that is mostly spinning disk, we can get up to a gigabyte per second ingest when Veeam is writing to us through that V12 API. We can ingest 128 usable terabytes of capacity on the box, and everything that lands on there is immutable. And I think the most significant thing is actually left out access. So I call the box zero access, which means that there is zero access to the root, backend, operating system, none of it. Our users only get access to a web user interface, which they can create S3 keys and create S3 buckets. At the end of the day, that's it. They can't get in there and start deleting their own data. They can't factory reset. They have no backend access whatsoever. And some might see that as a huge risk or a sacrifice of control. I see it as the only way that you can really get that zero trust, I don't trust myself level of security.
I'll tell you what, a little bit of my backstory. I tried building my own S3 cluster. It was wonderful. And we had to figure out nodes and OSDs and controllers. I just remember 3 roles. I remember the ability to Ceph. That's where we were. We were in Ceph, and it was like, wow, how do we go about and balance out the different shelves? And everything kept wanting to rebalance. And we would find that we would have horrible RAID drivers for these cards, and we'd have to go to the Ceph community and go, can somebody write this RAID driver? And it would throw things in balance modes, and it was all these calculations. And honestly, at the end of the day, I found Ceph to be a little more expensive. So while I had the capability to be an S3 cluster, I could pretty much infinitely scale. I mean, maybe petabyte was about the size of a cluster, but really you could just grow it. The management, the support. And so we started looking at other solutions because we spent a year and a half in development in-house at a cloud provider I worked for, and we just really didn't have anything we felt could come to market. And when we were looking at our disks, we were like 3 disks to create 1, if you will. It was like a really bad loss. And then we got into things like erasure coding, and we could get down to 2, and still just the nightmare was astronomical. So we started looking at some of the other vendors out there, and we would find, and I'm not going to name them by name, but it was like, you can pay me $200 per terabyte and we'll give you some support. And it was like, what? On top of everything else. So in looking at Oobi and what you're saying, I mean, what do I have to worry about when I buy this box? Like, are we talking fully supported? Is it just plug and play? Like, how does this work if I'm a Veeam customer and I just want to start writing to it?
So 2 things you said really struck a chord with me. The first is, I want to eliminate the word worry from our customers' dictionary. Like, they should not have to worry about anything, because by design, we've tried to eliminate all the stress and maintenance and any kind of control that would come with traditional storage. And that leads me to the first thing you said, which is just the complexity of the industry. And I think it's funny because you look at B2B and you look at B2C, and in the world of business to consumer, everything has to just work now, right? Like, if you download an app to your phone and it's even remotely squirrely, you just delete the app and like, I'm never touching that again. Like, as consumers, we've become so accustomed to simple, I can just log in with one account, everything's tied together, everything's seamless, until it's not. But for the most part, everything just works. I can watch whatever I want to watch. I can listen to whatever I want to listen to. I can get whatever I want to get. And it's usually a few taps away. But it's the exact opposite in B2B. You look at all the solutions out there today, and even the simple, quote unquote, I'm doing major air quotes right here, The simple ones require, a PhD in either security storage or, computer science, which no one has the time to go off and learn new technology because our hair is constantly on fire trying to keep the old stuff alive. One of the design principles of what we come up with is if we remove all of the configuration, if we only optimize for one use case, and we eliminate our user's ability to do anything with the product outside of its bare bones utility, get an S3 key created, connect it to Veeam, ensure that Veeam can write to it and be able to restore. If that's the only functionality we give them, they can't mess it up. And that also means that every single potential outlier and customization and possibility that comes with every other vendor is no longer a risk to the setup. This thing breaks, it's going to break the same way for everybody, which, sounds bad, but universally that means it's very easy for us to support. And speaking of support, we offer, support built in for 3 years when you buy the box. It's all included. If a disk drive dies, we're going to send you a new one. We really tried to create something that is as frustration-free as possible. And the irony of frustration-free as a marketing term is they refer to frustration-free in terms of plastics, those things that wrap up toys, and it's never easy, and it's the exact opposite of this. But in this case, it really is frustration-free. And when I first started looking to leave my previous job and come to ObjectFirst, when I saw the product, I didn't believe it. And I think a lot of people don't. That's what I've noticed at these conferences and events I'll go and work. They're like, that's it? That's all you do? It's like, yeah, 2 things, S3 keys, S3 buckets. That's all you can do. Like, what about the rest of it? Like, we optimized all of that. You do nothing. It's better this way. Trust me, trust us. And if there's a problem, we're going to take care of it. You should not have to take care of that. You're already busy enough as is.
No, and I appreciate that. And some of our listeners are going to know immutability and other people have no clue. But in my world, we do professional services at different devs. So we're always going on site or virtually on site, right? I'm not actually walking in your office, but we're reviewing through and doing an optimization review. And this is a big service we have. So first, I should quantify it. We have no arrangement with ObjectFirst or any vendor. I'm completely neutral. We're here to learn, discover, and make recommendations. And the number one thing we do is we run through their backups, scenarios, their recoveries, and we're like, hey, what immutability do you have? What air gaps? So just to throw it out there, I know it's very rudimentary, but to make sure people understand, we're talking about the ability to write backups that you just can't delete. You're not going to go in Veeam and delete something off, which sounds like ridiculously easy, but if we think about the whole insider threat, they look for our backup software. They try to find it. They try to delete it. And most people nowadays are thinking, well, let me air gap out to tape, which is a nightmare. Don't go there. I mean, go there because it is true only gap solution, but really anyone will tell you, don't go there unless you make tape drives for a living. And then you're like, we're the best of the best. So maybe one day I get some of those folks on the call and I have to eat my own words, but I've had to administer it. So as your friendly backup guy, I'm like, please love your backup administrators enough to not do this. So then we talk about off-site immutability, and we talked about Veeam's insider protection with Cloud Connect people. We talk about immutable storage with Wasabi, AWS, Microsoft, Azure, those sorts of things. But what we do is now we're starting to spin it back on-prem, and we're saying, listen, what locally do you have? And really the conversation used to tee up something like this. And Anthony, I'm sure you guys saw this as an entry point. It was like, well, all you have to do is build an immutable immutable Linux-based repository, which some of the cyber geeks like myself, I'm a Linux guy. I was forever. I'm like, all right, I get to sharpen my skills. I haven't really done this in production in a while. Yay. And then everyone else, the 99.5% of the world is like, oh my God, did you just imply I have to do something in Linux? Like, how do I patch it, secure it? What do I do when it breaks? And you're just like, no. So then you start looking at storage vendors. And what I love about ObjectFirst is you have that on-prem, you offer it, you support it, but you're leveraging S3. And something that I love that you spoke about in the founding company is, of course, the founders of the company coming from Veeam and knowing that they were on those internal development paths. It's almost as if when they were there, they saw this was the future. The exit was there for Veeam. They come on over and they're like, we believe there's enough of a market to do this. And they know that Veeam is the quadrant leader. And, I joke and say, I bleed green. I only deal in Veeam. So if you want to talk to me about some other storage product like Rubrik or whatever, yeah, I'm not going to do it. One, I don't know it, but I know enough about it that it doesn't work the way we need it to. Veeam is there. And I just watch more and more of this S3 storage from seeing the changes internally. I don't know if you were aware of this, but the first release of, or several releases of M365 backup, it was all like Jet database. It was all storage and it worked, but we were one of the first people that really tried to scale this wide as a cloud provider, and it just started falling flat. And when we moved it to object storage, as they had brought about different calls, they were like, listen, rather than fixing this whole scenario, let's object it. And oh my good Lord, it was night and day difference. So as we look at backups, thinking that I can have an immutable storage that I just create a bucket or, poor man's world, a repository, a folder or whatever, and several of them. And then I can set the flag to be undeleted after a certain amount of time is amazing. And furthermore, my Veeam backup methodology, I can tier these things out. So I can say bucket 1, like what we often do with people. Bucket 1, we mute days 1 through 14, and we write 28 days worth of data there. So we know we're lock and step, we're keeping it good, and we're pruning off with GFS as we should. We hit day 28, we write to bucket number 2, and we're like, everything over there immute. So now our customers have a safeguard that days 1 through 14 are locked down and they're pruning and not growing forever. And then the second one, we keep our long retentions there. And this is kind of like a 2-vector attack for somebody to get you, which is important to understand. If they hit Veeam, they can't delete it. They would actually have to come in. They'd have to penetrate you. They'd have to find this ObjectFirst box. Then they'd have to crack the security there to be able to delete it. And I always tell people, if you're in that level of an attack, this is very much more a coordinated effort. Like, you're not walking away anyway. That's where you're going to other means like gaps and whatnot. But the fact that you get that level of security right out of the box is awesome. Whereas in Veeam, you're like, create job, create repository, sober it out, bucket 1, bucket 2 together. I mean, how long would you say it takes to set that off? Because I would have my guess. I would go 20 minutes maybe across the board. But how would you, I mean, you've done it way more than I have from where you're coming from. What would you think to set something up as cool as that runs?
We've timed it. So
really?
We have a YouTube series. Go to our webpage or our page on YouTube, ObjectFirst. It's called Box to Backup in 15 minutes. And Matt Price and I actually had to talk more to make it 15 minutes because, in all honesty, the longest part of the setup is if the cluster needs to do an update on first configuration. That's maybe 5 minutes of the setup, but then it's create S3 key, give it a name, create S3 bucket, give it a name, copy your S3 web portal into Veeam, new backup repository, click next, paste in your S3 key, you're done. Congratulations, you're an ObjectFirst power user. It's
wow.
It's kind of humorous because oftentimes, as someone who runs technical marketing at this company, people are like, do you have enough work to do given how simple the product is? I'm like, well, yeah, there's no such thing as a non-busy day at a startup, but I'm certainly not doing technical marketing today because that's all been done already. It's too easy.
It's crazy to think about it's that easy because anybody that's been around Veeam long enough, I love it. The tagline used to be like, it just works. And I would be like, my entire company exists. For listeners that don't know, I ran a cloud company forever. We grew it from nothing. We went platinum. We sold out of it. It still lives today. God bless them. Have fun without me. And I go and I start my vacation rental business in quote retirement, right? And no, folks, I didn't win millions of dollars, but I got enough to be able to go, hey, what was my side hustle? Maybe it'll be my main hustle. And I'm there about a year before, not even, where Veeam's calling me going, hey man, you used to make stuff work. Could you go? So I left. Veeam used to say it just works. And then you have a professional services partner like myself that's like, well, we make it work. And you're like, well, there's this large gap in the middle. And then you introduce something like ObjectFirst and you're like, no, this is really easy. Like we're not putting in a Linux repository because I have a fear, man. Like everybody asks about these Linux repos and it's cool. And it's like, I'll set it up for you. But do you really want to call me to patch it? Do you really want me to go, oh, there's another iteration of the OS. So, the kernel. Yeah, you can do a kernel upgrade. Oh, you ran out of room over there. So now what we need to do is take it offline, get it upgraded, but not destroy your file system. And with Veeam, anybody knows one part of Veeam touches the next and it all chains up. And if the earlier in the chain you break from backup to backup copy to wherever, everything downstream goes sideways. And so this isn't a weakness of Veeam on any level. This is just Linux. And if you're great with Linux, awesome. So now you're paying me as a VASP to come in and be your Linux admin. And like, who wants that on a day? Whereas now with this, you're just like, listen, it's your S3 key, your S3 bucket. There you go. You have a problem. You call ObjectFirst. If not, you're in the Veeam world. It presents. And so talk to me a little bit more about the scalability, because I want to touch upon the sober concept before I tee you in there. Is in my world, this is my spiel, ready, with storage. I was like, ladies and gentlemen, customer before me, the word sober is of the devil, like of, Adam Sandler movie, it's mama saying sober is the devil. And people are like, why? And I'm like, well, under unchecked usage, a sober is basically multiple extents brought together, two storage pools brought together. I said, picture it like unrated storage. You're like, split my data across there, but if you lose one, you lose it all. And people are like, oh my God, are you serious? And it's like, yeah, man, don't ever use that. Like, it does not exist. So like, cool. And they're like, what about data locality? And I'm like, well, that says always write to extent number 1 until it can't and it does number 2. And they're like, oh my God, what's that? And they're like, why would they do this? I said, well, it comes into what we're going to talk about next, which is when we start talking about S3 storage and a sober, now I'm the champion. I'm like, sober's not the devil. When coupled with S3, it is the cat's meow, because I'm a cool jazz guy, right? Cat's meow. So here you come in, scalability. It's not from the sober concept, because I think essentially the sober stays the same, 2 extents or whatnot with tiering. But on your back end, as you approach these thresholds, you said, I think you could do 4 units in a cluster or something along those lines. Yep. So how do I scale out? I buy one. Am I locked into it? Like, what does this look like in my world? And storage wise, like, where am I going and growing with this?
So I'm gonna get to your answer, but first I got to talk about some of the people we've talked to in the past, because you'd be surprised. People don't really understand object storage and immutability all that well. And I think to key up the sober conversation first, I want to make sure like everyone understands immutable truly means it cannot be deleted once written. Now, in Amazon, you do have the option to use governance mode or compliance mode. Governance meaning that there is some kind of God admin that can actually come in and delete the thing, but most people can't. Oobi uses compliance mode, which, you guessed it, cannot be deleted in any way, shape, or form. And all of that is to say that once something lands on Oobi from Veeam, if it has a 12-day immutability window from first full to last incremental, that data will be kept for 12 plus days, the entire chain of backups. To the sober conversation, you may have done the math wrong, which, that happens. People do the math wrong, and 128 terabytes might not be enough for you. You may find that out very quickly, and then you call us up and say, hey, my box is full. What do I do? We can help you, but the honest truth is you probably need another node. So how do you scale the thing? Really, really easily. When you set up Oobi for the first time, you're actually setting up a cluster, even though it's a cluster of 1. It's a uniqueness in how we've built our operating system and our object storage, and how we take advantage of some of the intrinsic natures of RAID 6 and object storage in combination with each other. So you add a second node. All you do is you give it 2 new IP addresses for each of the NICs inside, and it does all the rest. Because what is on Oobi is objects, and they are immutable, it's going to automatically span to take advantage of the newly added 128 terabytes, those nodes that are on there. So while the data isn't changing, the RAID is expanding, and the data is actually able to replicate to that second node and then be cleaned on the first. So there's a little bit of proprietary magic happening on the back end. Nothing is ever deleted. It's only ever moved and verified, which means that, 1, scaling is really easy. It's just as easy as the rest of it. You add the node, nothing changes. If you have 1 bucket plugged into Veeam, you're still going to have 1 bucket. In fact, Veeam doesn't actually know that you have scaled up at all. And that's kind of the magic of it, is there's no actual change outside of the fact that, hey, congratulations, you've unlocked 128 terabytes of more capacity, and you've doubled your speeds. And everything works linearly like that. For every node you add up to 4, and I will just say, why 4? Because it's a limitation we put on ourselves for V1. There's no real reason why you couldn't have more than 4, other than we said, we're a startup. There are always going to be unknowns with new software. In time of testing and build, we only had like 20 units in a warehouse. So testing more than that would have been impossible. So we said 4 is a good number to start with. Year 2, who knows? We could just unlock that thing and you go buck wild as many nodes as you want. But for today, it is 4. And the scaling is so easy. Once you just add that node, automatically load balances, everything spans, your immutability stays, and you can continue to have that safe and secure backup ecosystem.
So when I was back in my Ceph days, I was mentioning those OSDs and those 2 other roles. The whole concept was you had redundancy across a shelf, multiple shelves. It was like a network hardware RAID, very, very complex. But the concept was if you lost a disk, you were not a problem. There were 3 copies or 2 if you're an erasure. If you lose a shelf, how does that work with your cluster? So clearly, if it's a shelf of 1 and you turn it off, yeah, you have no data there. But what if I lose 1 shelf or 2 shelves? Like, how does that work for the resiliency of your system or your availability, I should say?
It's not as pretty as me just saying, oh, well, all you have to do is, turn it on and run this command and you'll be right as rain. There is a support system to save a bad shelf. So let's say CPU blows out, power supply blows out, something goes wrong with the hardware. There is a way that we can get a new node out, put all the disks in, and then replicate. You'll be back to normal. Might take a day or 2, but there is a process, right? Like we have thought through this scenario. The more likely thing that goes wrong is a disk dies, right? Like that's the one everyone knows and expects. We are using RAID 6 on our long-term storage disks. So you can lose up to 2 disks, no problem. We include a hot spare. As soon as the hot spare is in use, we ship out a new disk within 24 hours. So there's always going to be that, hey, if something's going wrong, we're going to be there to help you out. Ideally, the node doesn't go down, but if it does, we have tested that. We do have ways to recover pretty much every scenario, except for the hammer. You just can't recover from meteorites, hammers, and Godzilla. Like those are the few things that really the device is gone at that point. And honestly, that's why I'm such a champion for 321. I live in Florida. It's the hurricane capital. We get flooding down the street from my house every time there's a big storm blows through. Computers hate water. And I tell everyone, if you're not taking your local on-prem immutable data and replicating that into a cloud, you're doing it wrong, because you cannot count for the natural and physical disasters that can occur to local hardware. And no amount of bulletproofing, waterproofing, whatever proofing is going to make Oobi resilient against those kind of attacks.
It's funny that you went so dark there, because in my mind, when I was explaining failure to you, I pictured like I'm working in a rack and I'm not paying attention. I turn something off and you're like, the CPU catches fire. It all goes up in flames and a plane crashes into the data center, which is awesome. I'm glad you went there because, 321 is awesome. I preach it so much as a Vanguard. I'm just like, I get that, Vanguard, these are the smart guys. And we're like, the secret, wait for it. Make multiple copies of your data. Like when you were an old school user and you had Microsoft Word open and you saved it 2 different places and a floppy disk and whatever. We're like, listen, the more copies you have, the higher availability you have. So that's absolutely awesome in there, and I appreciate the breakdown. But I was just kind of feeling bad. I'm like, wow, man, he's been hit with some what do you do? And that's the whole thing, though, right? Like any vendor is going to face hardware challenge. You can't tell me a Dell and HP, Exagrid, these guys, unless they're shipping extra hardware to you, it's sitting in a dormant shelf, that you're really okay. And let's face it, guys, if they're giving you extra hardware and everybody else, you're paying for it one way or the other. So it's not really ever fair to say, listen, something went down. It really is that recovery strategy. It's like, I would hope that the more shelves we have, the more resilience we have, those sorts of things. You guys are talking about a no data loss situation, which is really important there. And, what I would say is, as we kind of wrap up, because what I always like to do here, the people that are listening, is we always geek it out and pay the bills, which is what ObjectFirst is. And Anthony and I think we've paid the bills. We probably should talk about websites for you, websites for me. So the marketing people are like, yes, you did your job. And we both get great job performance reviews and whatnot. And then we can get into a little bit of fun, which is kind of part two. So break it down, man. Give me this is ObjectFirst. This is what we need. And how do we get it? And who should we talk to? And yes, go.
Yes. So obviously objectfirst.com or oobi.com. We have both domains. Take your pick. That's a great way to learn more about us. I mentioned it earlier, that Box to Backup series. It's on YouTube, our entire YouTube channel. It's fun. Matt and I try to keep it like this podcast. It's conversational. We make jokes. We try to keep it light and really go for the lowest attention span possible and get these videos out, make them fun, make them colorful, make them quick. That's a great way to learn about us because we know the product and we love talking about it. So check that out. And humble brag, I wrote a really cool paper in the last couple of months on ransomware. It's actually not really focused at ObjectFirst or Oobi at all. It's just something we put together as a little goodwill piece. But if you go to our website, you can check out our ransomware report. It's all tips and secrets and strategies you can use to just sort of improve your chances of recovery if there is an attack. And those are the three things I'll shout out on our side.
All right, awesome. And this is Tom May. I'm with Different Dev, and we do things a little different here. Professional services, and we don't get kickbacks. So when I'm introducing you to Anthony, or I'm saying go look at their product, as we always do, we're vendor neutral. We're like 3 vendors, draw swords. We're going to have real conversations with you. So it's important when you're looking at your Veeam and saying, does it work? Hey, we're going to be the guys that come in and audit it and tell you if it's worked. We can go ahead and help you get it working. But unique industry to market, I'll say we're probably the only professional services that offers Veeam as a service. So we do your monitoring, we're your backup guy, and we are involved in all of your conversations. So if you're a Veeam customer today and you're like, man, I'm really thinking about some new storage, we work with you as well, because honestly, production equals backup. It's an ongoing conversation. So bills are paid. We're going to say goodbye to part 1. Woohoo!
Whether you're a seasoned solutionist or just starting out, the Rebel Devs podcast is a must listen. So join us. Comment, share, and subscribe. Be part of the Rebel Devs.